Welcome back to Sissy Maya. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Additionally, consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to these features, and much more. The atmosphere at home was far from pleasant, verging on ugly. I endured the stares and sarcastic comments silently to avoid escalating the tension. One memorable incident was when my dad unexpectedly walked in on me fully dressed as a girl, makeup and all. His reaction was explosive, while my mom found it amusing and teased me. Being 16, I had no escape from their judgment. My parents were never emotionally present, providing only basic necessities. After the incident, our relationship deteriorated further. My dad stopped involving me in activities, and our conversations revolved around my dressing preferences. My mom persistently offered to style my hair and suggested accessories or outfits, widening the gap between us. On my birthday, Dad gave me a curling iron and Mom a nightgown, both finding amusement in my discomfort. The situation only worsened with time, with no hope for improvement. My parents adhere strictly to traditional societal roles and have never wavered in their views on minorities or social hierarchy. So, when they discovered my crossdressing, it was like a bomb detonating in our home, an event I knew would eventually happen, despite my efforts to conceal it. Physically, I'm fairly average for a guy, but with a hairless body that made me the target of teasing in gym class. However, this smoothness was advantageous for my female persona. Growing up, my parents weren't affectionate toward each other or me, yet they expected academic excellence without active involvement. I had ample alone time, during which I indulged in cross-dressing until I was caught. My dad sells auto parts, and my mom is involved in charity work, leaving me largely to my own devices until the incident. Afterward, my mom ensured she was always present when I was home. As they distanced themselves further, they began discussing matters as if I weren't present, an oversight given my intelligence and academic achievements. Observing my dad stash money away, I couldn't help but wonder about his activities, forming my suspicions. Months passed before their guard even slightly lowered, and my dad grew careless, flaunting large sums of cash kept in his desk drawer. Meanwhile, my mom splurged on new furniture, a car, and house redecoration, suddenly flush with money. I gained nothing from this except the suspicion that my dad might be involved in illicit dealings. As I turned 17 during my senior year, I applied to several colleges, with my parents agreeing to cover tuition but expecting me to handle other expenses like car maintenance and insurance. They made it clear I was essentially on my own. On graduation day, my mom handed me a check, hinting at a slight concession. 2 days later, I left for college without a backward glance. Upon leaving for college, I naturally packed all my feminine attire, makeup, and shoes, anticipating the freedom to express myself away from my parents' scrutiny. What I had in mind would shock everyone, but I was resolute. After settling into a small apartment on campus, funded by years of saving, I had the financial security to expand my wardrobe. With 2 months before classes commenced, I embraced my alter ego, Riley, and with trepidation, secured a job at a local store presenting as female. Though I suspected my employer, Denise, recognized my true gender, she overlooked it, likely because my role didn't involve customer interaction. Assigned to order fulfillment and shipping management, I began immediately, under Denise's gentle yet direct supervision. 2 days later, she confronted me in the office, expressing understanding but requesting clarification about my intentions and the duration of my presentation as Riley. I slouched in my chair, meeting Denise's gaze, acknowledging her right to seek clarification. I intend to transition into a girl eventually, so I decided to start now. If you prefer, I can resign if you... I don't appreciate quitters, Riley, Denise interjected firmly. Whether you commit to transitioning or not is your decision, but don't assume actions prematurely with me. Taking a seat to level with me, she continued, I understand a bit about gender transitioning. I have no issue with you working here as a girl. I simply wanted to understand your intentions fully. Are you considering surgery? Nodding, I replied, Yes, but not immediately. I have other matters to address first. I'll progress as far as I can without surgery, and then… Then what? Denise interrupted. To even the score, I blurted out. To rectify things. Your parents, she inferred. Yes, I affirmed with a scowl. They're clueless, but after how they treated me. I'm not privy to your family dynamics, Denise interjected softly. But harboring constant anger is detrimental. It consumes you, serving no purpose beyond vengeance. Is that what you seek? Not revenge, I stated, a smirk playing on my lips, more like retribution. Leaning back, I recounted to Denise, my parents practically neglected me my whole life. When they discovered this, they cut me off entirely. Besides the basics of food and shelter, I was left to fend for myself. Mom hovered to ensure I didn't dress up again, but Dad, he needs a wake-up call, and I'm here to deliver it. By transitioning? Denise queried. No, I clarified, that's something I've always desired. What I have in mind is far more exhilarating. They're clueless about my feelings, and when I left for college, they washed their hands of me and relocated to Europe without even sharing their new address. Why should I care what they think? Seems like none, Denise commented with a tinge of sadness, but does this mean you'll be attending college as a girl? I enrolled using my initials and checked the female box, so yes, precisely as I intend, I affirmed. Even my mom reviewed the form before signing, oblivious to the details, bitterness creeping into my tone with the last remark. After signing some paperwork, Denise exited the office, leaving me puzzled by her response. I refrained from questioning her further about her experience with boys wanting to become girls, opting to wait until tensions eased. Uncertain about Denise's stance, yet appreciative of her employment offer, I let the matter rest. Gradually gaining confidence in my female presentation, I ventured to a local store to expand my wardrobe. That night, I bid farewell to my male attire, resolving never to wear it again. As I unpacked my new clothes, Denise's words about anger and revenge echoed in my mind, replacing my bitterness with a realization of my parents' indifference throughout my life. Left to my own devices, abandoned by my family, I pondered my plan over a soda, contemplating its feasibility as time passed. Mom, though not as distant as Dad, seemed to spend money he hadn't earned, which would surely astonish her once she realized. But my focus was on my father's downfall, a certainty in my mind. How exactly, I hadn't figured out, but I was determined to play a role, and I vowed to do it as a woman. His shock would shake him to his core, particularly when he discovered who orchestrated it. Denise and I settled into a routine, my inhibitions about dressing as a girl diminishing, allowing me to adopt a more natural feminine demeanor. As school commenced, I juggled night and weekend shifts with coursework, pushing aside all distractions. Dating wasn't on my agenda, simplifying matters, and I maintained my grades while even earning a slight raise before Christmas. Though lonely during the holidays as classmates departed, I utilized the time productively. Sneaking into the medical building, I accessed the drug supply and stocked up on pills, driven solely by my distorted determination, ignoring the risks, convinced my objectives justified any peril. Following an online schedule, I began taking the pills that very night. It wasn't until February that the theft was uncovered, by which time I had begun to develop slightly. In my excitement, I almost confided in Denise about my progress, but managed to keep quiet. By May, I had grown to a full A cup, no longer needing my makeshift padding, yet opting to enhance my existing bras rather than purchase new ones, successfully concealing the difference. As spring transitioned into summer and I resumed full-time work, my physique resembled that of an average 18-year-old girl, save for one aspect. Throughout the school year, I hadn't heard from my parents, as expected, so you can imagine my surprise when I received an email from my mother, expressing a desire to meet while she was in town. Aware of her disapproval, particularly regarding my feminine attire, I swiftly agreed, arranging to meet her at a local restaurant. That evening, I embarked on a shopping spree, determined to stun my mother sooner than planned, ensuring every purchase fit perfectly.
After notifying Denise and securing the day off, I indulged in a leisurely bubble bath, meticulously grooming to achieve smoothness. Giggling to myself as I lounged, I relished the anticipation of defying my mother's expectations by embracing my femininity. With ample time before our meeting at 2, I savored the process of applying makeup, carefully enhancing my green eyes with soft brown eyeliner, complemented by hues of pale plum, copper, and a hint of blue eyeshadow. Peach blush with plum undertones added definition to my features, and as I admired my reflection, I adorned myself with perfume before selecting my outfit from the dresser. Starting with black satin thong panties adorned with a strip of wide black lace, I progressed to a black bustier featuring a built-in push-up bra. After cinching the laces, my waist measured a trim 25 inches, while the bustier accentuated my curves, creating a distinctly feminine cleavage. Grinning at my reflection, I slipped into tan hose and secured the garters before selecting the red dress from the hanger. Despite wearing all-black lingerie, I opted for a red sheath dress, short and low-cut, snug yet not overly tight. Stepping into black heels and adding lipstick and red and gold earrings, I admired my appearance once more. My once short brown hair had grown into shimmering waves of auburn, framing my face beautifully. After brushing out my bangs and checking the time, I grabbed my purse and headed out to meet my mother. Silently hoping for her shock, though skeptical of such a dramatic reaction, I anticipated she might not recognize me. Nevertheless, I planned for her departure, having made the reservation myself. Waiting in the parking lot until spotting her entering the restaurant, I delayed a few moments before making my entrance. With a confident sway of my hips and my vibrant makeup and long nails accentuating my figure, I smiled as I entered. Observing my mother's obliviousness, I approached her table, seated myself across from her, and greeted her with a smile, enveloped in the scent of my perfume. "I'm sorry, dear," my mother began. "I'm waiting for oh my God." "Hello, Mother," I greeted her with a smile. "Yes, it's me, and as you can see, I've undergone some changes. Just in case you're remotely interested, my name is Riley." Mother's complexion paled, rendering her speechless. "But since we both know your level of interest, feel free to disregard my revelation." Pausing briefly, I continued, "What's wrong, Mother? Am I an embarrassment to you? Or perhaps I don't meet your standards of beauty? Is it this dress? My hair? What?" Deliberately provoking her, I intended to persist as long as she remained silent, nearly adding another remark when she finally spoke. "Andrew, Riley, we," she sighed. "I should have anticipated this outcome. I suggested to your father that we take you with us. Perhaps you wouldn't." "I wasn't about to leave with him, Mother," bitterness seeping into my tone. "You, of all people, should have realized that. And enduring your constant remarks day after day was not an option. I agreed to this meeting solely to assert that I'm now in control of my own life, not you, and I've chosen to embrace the woman I truly am." "It appears," she responded with a hint of forcefulness, "that you've succeeded. Tell me, do you truly harbor such disdain toward us?" "Doesn't even begin," I remarked lightly, "to cover it, Mother. Hate is too mild a term. Despise is more apartment throughout my life. You neglected me. You never attended a single school event or celebrated any of my achievements. In fact, you did little more than provide food and shelter. I was akin to a pet to you and dear old Dad. What did you expect? That I would eagerly embrace the role of the obedient dog you treated me as? Then you announced I was on my own and departed, without even leaving me your address. So, tell me, what exactly did you expect from me after sending that email?" "I understand," Mom responded sadly. I never realized. I mean, we thought we were teaching you, but that's irrelevant now, isn't it?" Slumping in her chair, she continued, "You look lovely, Riley, and those assets appear genuine, or you wouldn't have worn a dress like that. You're using your appearance to make a statement, and I suppose you've succeeded. But I came to inform you that your father is in jail." "Bribery? Kickbacks?" I inquired. "How did you know about that?" "I'm not oblivious," Mother. I was aware of the kickbacks long before you abandoned me. How could I not? Dad stuffing money in his desk with me present. Your extravagant purchases we couldn't afford. It was glaringly obvious. You only spared a thought for me to criticize, make snide remarks, or tease me. The rest of the time, it was as if I didn't exist, and you became careless. Leaning in, I met her gaze squarely. How long is he sentenced for? 20 years, Mom relayed with a grim expression, in a Middle Eastern jail. It's a nightmarish place. Oh, how terrible, I responded, devoid of any remorse. Daddy dear gets to experience what it's like. I'm devastated. It's evident, Mom remarked, you couldn't care less about your father's fate. Not in the slightest, I affirmed. And what about me? She inquired. What about you? I retorted. You never wanted me, especially after, well, now that I've changed, what's different besides Daddy dearest being in jail? I suppose you plan to stick around, try to sabotage my new life, just like before? Leaning back, my anger flushed my face red. What is it? I demanded. You tell me. Do you think I can trust you? How can I trust you now, regardless of what you do? I thought, Mom began, tears welling up, that we could start anew. I hoped. I can see now, we hurt you deeply. I had no clue about your desire, that you would. I need you, she confessed, tears streaming down her face. I didn't realize the extent of your feelings about becoming a woman. I didn't know. Yeah, I acknowledged, and you never bothered to inquire, did you? You and Dad just assumed what? That I was what? Different. Crazy. Maybe both. You never showed any interest in me. If you had, you would have made time to attend at least one significant event in my life, like when I was named class valedictorian or when I won the gold medal for scholastic achievement. But no, you and Dad stayed home or went out those nights. Well, I'm independent now, and I've forged a new life for myself. Frankly, Mother, I don't need you, especially not your hurtful remarks, and I can't find a single reason why I should care about what you want or need. Please, Mom pleaded, her lips trembling in despair. Let me make it up to you. We, you and I, can start anew. I'll never see your father again, ever. He'll die in that prison. I don't want to be alone. Her sobs intensified, prompting the waiter to approach our table. I dismissed him with a wave of my hand, allowing Mom to sit there and cry, mirroring the countless nights I had endured. Riley, she implored through tears, please, don't push me away, I need you. She placed her hand over mine, continuing, I'll be the mother you always wanted, I promise. Despite my urge to leave, I remained seated. Perhaps a glimmer of hope kept me there. I doubted she could transform into the mother I desired. A rabbit cannot become a wolf just by wishing. Despite my skepticism, a flicker of hope emerged. Unlike my father, my mother had exhibited a trace of decency when she provided me with that money, leading me to believe that deep down, she might care. Here she sat, across from me, her son-turned daughter, begging for a chance to help me, confessing her need for me. I didn't fully trust her, but I was willing to grant her a single opportunity to prove herself. All right, I replied slowly, what exactly did you have in mind? I thought, she began, that we could spend some time together to start with, perhaps a small vacation. I have a job, Mother. I can't simply leave. Denise has been incredibly supportive, and I won't betray her like that. She's been a mother figure to me in ways you can't even imagine. However, maybe I can arrange some time off, perhaps a few days, a long weekend. My intentional jab stung her, as intended. I was willing to offer her a chance, albeit with some caution. I wasn't going to jeopardize Denise in any way. If my femininity unsettled my mother, she needed to adapt quickly because I had no intention of reverting. I embraced every aspect of being a girl, emulating their behaviors and attire, even when unnecessary. For instance, I consistently used sanitary tampons for 5 days each month. Admittedly, they weren't utilized in the conventional manner, but it made me feel exceptionally feminine, so I didn't mind at all. As I gazed at my mother, I realized, for the first time, that I held some leverage, perhaps capable of asserting my desires. "Where are you staying?" I inquired. "I have a room," she replied hastily, "at a nearby small hotel. I thought it would be wise to have a discussion before I secure something more permanent." "What about the old house?" I recalled they still owned it. "I've rented it out," Mom explained, with a lease spanning 7 years and an option to buy. I shared my phone number with her, instructing her to call me later that night. Then, with a deliberate sway of my hips, I walked out, leaving her alone. All my plans had gone awry, but with my mother's unexpected appearance, I had seized the opportunity to inflict some emotional damage, and I knew I had succeeded. I didn't truly care about her opinion of my lifestyle, but if she could find a way to accept me as I was, perhaps I could consider meeting her halfway and attempting to build a fragile relationship, one prone to collapse at any moment. With my father likely enduring a hellish jail sentence, her assessment seemed correct. I would likely never see him again, and even if he were to be released, it would likely change nothing. I couldn't claim to be content with what I had done to my mother. It brought me no solace. However, I had laid it all out for her to contemplate. After a lifetime of neglect, I wasn't about to eagerly welcome her back into my life with open arms, pretending that everything was fine. I sought out Denise and, for the first time, confided in her completely. As she listened, her eyes welled with tears at times, grew somber at others, and finally softened into a smile when I finished recounting everything. Although I hadn't shed a tear while speaking, I felt relieved. "Now," Denise remarked, "the ball is in your mother's court, isn't it? You met with her, and though you made sure to convey your feelings, now it's her turn to respond. She can either accept or depart, correct?" After a moment, she added, "Did you actually tell her that I've been like a mother to you?" I nodded affirmatively. "That's a kind thing to say about me, Riley, but I imagine it struck your mother harder than anything else." "That was the intention," I admitted. "Regardless," Denise said, squeezing my hand, "she's your mother. Give her a chance, okay?" I assured Denise that I would, then headed home. I was wound up tightly and desperately needed to unwind. After undressing, I slipped into shorts and a top without a bra, then turned on the television. The horrifying scene that unfolded before me left me speechless. The commentator's somber tone matched the gravity of the situation he described. The unthinkable had occurred. I witnessed people leaping from immense heights to certain death, while rescue teams of firefighters and police braved the inferno, dodging debris as they rushed into the burning building. The live broadcast of the second tower being struck, shown in vivid color, was particularly chilling. Words failed the commentator as both towers burned, resembling nothing more than towering, blazing matchsticks. Tears welled in my eyes as the first tower began to collapse, followed by the second tower crumbling into a searing explosion of pulverized concrete and steel, forming a dense cloud of dust that settled over the surrounding area for blocks, thick and suffocating, driving all but the most determined away from the scene. Shortly after Denise's call, informing me that she would be closed for a few days due to her brother's employment in one of the towers, my mother phoned, asking if she could come over. Lost in grief over what I had witnessed, I provided her with directions. Within half an hour, we both sat transfixed by the unfolding tragedy on the screen. Any lingering issues between my mother and me faded into insignificance amidst the cloud of dust, overshadowed by my escalating feelings of vengeance against those responsible for such an atrocity. As news emerged of Westerners being targeted in various countries, particularly those in prisons, my resolve surged to unprecedented levels. The jail where my father was held was deemed relatively safe, but subsequent reports revealed that every Western inmate had been executed to forestall further attacks on the facilities. I watched my mother pale, then collapse to the floor, gasping for breath and sobbing uncontrollably. Mom stayed over that night, and as we sipped coffee the next morning, more reports of incidents began to emerge. However, we also listened as the president delivered a forceful statement, his voice barely concealing his anger. Throughout that day, with the television providing a backdrop, Mom and I realized that our desire for companionship outweighed our mutual distrust. It was during that day that we started to communicate. The conversation lasted for hours, marked by my accusations, her denials, my anger, and her eventual acknowledgement of my grievances. It was a mixture of ugliness and relief, harsh words and poignant realizations, yet somehow we managed to navigate through it. Mom was taken aback when she saw me that morning, as I usually wore panties and a short nightgown to bed. As I emerged from my room, she could see that my body had indeed taken on the contours of a girl my age. She remained silent until the strains of Amazing Grace began playing, at which point she started to cry. Drawing me into her embrace, we wept together, our tears mingling as we mourned the loss of lives and perhaps even the loss of our past selves. Later that week, Mom moved in with me, and over time, we developed a deeper understanding of each other. While I continued working, Mom found a job in an office. As my feminine attributes continued to develop, Mom and I began sharing clothes and beauty appointments, frequently going out together. Our bond grew stronger, reflecting the natural closeness between a mother and her child. My long-standing despair over my circumstances gradually dissipated as I started seeing Mom in a new, more mature light, no longer clouded by youthful anger or the presence of an overbearing father. As I neared graduation, my sense of masculinity dwindled until it was little more than a vestige, rendering me eager to undergo gender confirmation surgery. When my mother inquired about the cost, I braced myself for her reaction, expecting her to balk at the price. However, I think once school lets out, we should look into completing your transition, Riley. Who should we contact? We can't afford that, I exclaimed. Let me handle that, Riley. Now, who should we call? I provided the information, and 2 days after school ended, I underwent gender confirmation surgery. Following a brief hospital stay, I returned home. It took nearly 2 months for me to heal enough to walk comfortably again, and for the first time, I felt like my true self. During those 2 months, Mom treated me as her daughter, and our bond deepened even further. It happened during the first term of my senior year. I was preparing dinner while Mom peeled carrots when the doorbell rang. I'll get it, I offered. Wiping my hands on my apron, I went to the front door and opened it. Shocked, I stumbled backward into the room, knocking over a small table, prompting Mom to rush out. When she saw who it was, she screamed. "Hello, Janet," he greeted. "Where's our useless son? And who's the lady?" "Stephen," Mom exclaimed, stunned. But, you're supposed to be dead. It was on the news. They said all Westerners were killed. "May I come in?" he asked casually. "Nice place you have here, Janet. Sharing expenses?" This is Riley's home," Mom clarified, calming down. "I live here with her." "You're not welcome here," I interjected hastily. "So please leave." "Is that you, Andy?" Dad sneered as he barged in. "Always knew you were a bit strange," he remarked. "And I see you're still wearing dresses. But hey, you're kinda cute. I'll give you that." "Why are you here?" Mom demanded. "To get my money, of course," Dad retorted. "I hope you didn't spend it all. That would disappoint me greatly." I spent it, Stephen," Mom admitted, "trying to get you out of jail." "Jail?" Dad chuckled. "Honey, I've never been in jail. They need guys like me. I help them out. I make sure they get what they need. I've never been in any danger. Now, about my money." I hoisted myself onto the couch, grabbing the cell phone as I pulled myself up. Slowly, I dialed 911 and pressed the send button, then placed the phone on the table, still connected. "You just barge into our home," I addressed him, making demands. "How did you even find us? 812 Juniper isn't exactly a common address, and since my name is Riley, I was just curious." "It was a piece of cake, girlie. Took me about 10 minutes to locate you too. I want you to leave," I insisted, "and don't ever come back." "And I want my money," Dad retorted. "Your mother is going to tell me where it is," or I'm going to be very upset. Go to hell, Stephen, Mom spat. Dad reeled back his fist and struck Mom squarely in the mouth, drawing blood and causing her to collapse to her knees in agony. Just as he was about to strike her again, the door burst open and 2 burly cops stormed in. They swiftly subdued Dad and hauled him to his feet, escorting him to the police car. "Are you ladies all right?" "I'm okay, but Mom needs a doctor," I replied. "I'll take her myself." A month later, my dad was charged with espionage for aiding those involved in the horrifying events my mom and I had witnessed on television. Mom recovered from her injuries, and upon returning home, she confided in me that she had stashed nearly $20 million in a bank. This money had been acquired through bribery, extortion, and facilitating illicit operations for governments aiming to destabilize ours. The magnitude of the revelation stunned me, but Mom seemed unfazed, explaining that apart from what we needed for our comfort, she intended to donate the remainder to the families of the firefighters and police officers who had lost their lives in the tragedy. That was a year ago. Now, I work as a registered nurse, while Mom continues her office job. She's even started dating again, but I'm still considering it for myself. However, one piece of advice from Denise still echoes in my mind: anger is an ugly thing to carry around all of the time, Riley. It can consume you and serves no purpose other than revenge. Looking back, I realize she was absolutely right.